Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of Dan Reviews It. This time we're going to take a look at the summer threequels for the kiddies, Cars 3 and Despicable Me 3. Now, not a fan of the previous installments of either of these films. Cars 2 is like easily the worst Pixar movie. There's not even anything close. It's like everything's in the like A plus to B plus pretty much range, and then Cars 2 is like a D. Like, it's so bad. Minions, not as bad as that, but also kind of bad. Like, the first Despicable Me is great, the second one's pretty good, and then the Minions was just like so average. So let's see how the new ones stack up. Owen Wilson is back as Lightning McQueen in Cars 3, of course, and a lot of the regulars are back as well. You got Larry the Cable Guy as Tow Mater, and a lot of the other cast. But there is a new hot car in town that is winning all the races, and that's voiced by Armie Hammer. And so what happens? A lot of the older cars start retiring, Chick Hicks and that sort of thing, the ones that we know from the first couple Cars movies. And Lightning has to either, kind of work on his game a little bit, or he's out. So he gets a trainer and a new, business partner, and starts to practice and hope that he can, really make the grade there. So this movie is a significant improvement from Cars 2. I mean, look, it would be hard to be that bad. To me, Cars 2 was the first and so far only time Pixar has just been in it for the money. The story was just horrible. The jokes weren't there. It was such a bad film. This one corrects a lot of those wrongs. Now, it's not quite as good as the first Cars, but it corrects a lot of those wrongs. The story's great. It sort of, in some ways, reflects the first Cars, and they talk a lot about Doc Hudson, which is, of course, the mentor from the original Cars movie, and, voiced by the late Paul Newman. They, they evoke him a lot in this edition of the series, and I think it adds something. It is meaningful, especially for fans of the first movie, who remember that whole dynamic between Doc and Lightning. So Lightning sort of discovers that Doc's prime wasn't actually his racing years. It was the years he was mentor to Lightning McQueen. So, really cool stuff. The visuals of these movies just keep getting better. Now, you have a movie like, say, Inside Out, which was amazing. It was an A+. But visually, it was certainly cartoony because you have, the inner workings of a person's mind. Here it's obviously cartoony too because it's, talking cars and stuff, but what's great about it is all the scenery and the road stuff, and there's a scene in the sand. There's a couple scenes in the sand. There's a scene at a drag show, like a drag race, or like a monster truck, like Demolition Derby. That's what I'm thinking of, and just the visual component of the scenery and everything in this movie, it's just top notch. Pixar has never been a company to not be on the cutting edge of computer animation, and here they do it again. The animation's breathtaking, which I also didn't get from the second Cars. It seems like, to me, the second Cars should have just been a direct-to-DVD movie, but I guess Disney doesn't do that anymore since there's too much cash to be made at the box office. But the plot, is good. The voice work, I didn't even realize it was Armie Hammer, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan. I think he's done some okay stuff, but he's really good here as the newcomer. And Owen Wilson, I'm not a huge fan of his either, to be honest. He's funny in some movies, but not my favorite for sure. But the Lightning McQueen character, I mean, he really has made it into something. And I think he can be proud of it. Is it to the level of like a Tom Hanks and Tim Allen doing Woody and Buzz? No, of course not. But the Cars movies aren't quite up to that speed either. So no pun intended there with the speed comment. But so it makes sense. Um, the music is okay. The music in the first one was so great and almost iconic. You had the Life is a Highway cover and some of the other road songs. But here, the soundtrack does mix well with what's happening in the plot. Lightning McQueen being taken down a peg is always pretty good for the character. Humbles him a little bit. In that first one, he's so cocky until he realizes the fault in his ways, and every so often he needs to be reminded of that. So that's good. The mistake, I think, the gravest mistake I should say in Cars 2 is making it all about Mater. Mater is a great side character, and here he remains a side character, unlike in 2. So I thought that was good. It was really good to see him. Look, I like Larry the Cable Guy in spurts. I think he's funny, and obviously the character here is a classic at this point for kids. But it can't be all about Mater. And here, they keep him at a good, level. It's not too much. It's not too little either. Kids aren't going to be where's Mater? Where's Mater? No, he shows up enough, and throughout the film. So that was good. I also like that they didn't go the romance route with Lightning McQueen and his female trainer. Look, they did the romance in Cars 1. Not every movie has to have a romance, especially a kids movie. You could just have fun in a kids movie, and here, they do have some fun. Are the laughs constant? No, they're not. It is lower tier Pixar. I'll be honest. It's not even as good as Finding Dory or the Toy Story sequels, Monsters University. Those were all great. But is it way better than Cars 2? Absolutely. I leave Cars 3 with a B. So we've got Despicable Me 3 next, and here's another one. Like I said, the last installment, the Minions movie. I don't like when they take the side characters and make them the main attraction. I just said it with Tow Mater in Cars 2, but also the Penguins of Madagascar, and even non-animated things. I think Forgetting Sarah Marshall is great, and then you put I forget the character's name, but he's played by Russell Brand. You put him in Get Him to the Greek. It's just not as good. No, it's not always horrible. Like I like the Puss in Boots movie, for example. I like This Is 40, which is sort of the sort of sequel to Knocked Up, they called it. But the Minions they couldn't hold their own movie, and to be honest, I don't think they're that great anyway. They're funny in spurts, right? But after the Minions movie, I'm like super sick of them. But so here the basic plot is that Gru, the Steve Carell voiced ex-supervillain, is now part of the anti-villain league, so he's trying to do nice things, and they're working on getting this character, Balthazar Bratt, who is voiced by Trey Parker from South Park, and he was an 80s child star, but after a few years, he hit puberty, and it just all went to hell for the acting there, and he turned into a real-life villain. Not just a character on the show. So he's back now in his, I guess, 40s maybe, and he's trying to take over the world and ruin Hollywood, essentially, because, of course, that's the town that ruined him, right? So in this edition, Gru, still has the three little girls, and he's also, I guess, married to the Kristen Wiig character that we were introduced to in the second one. And then he finds out he has a twin brother, Drew. So you got Gru and Drew. And so the Anti-Villain League in the beginning of the movie basically kicks Gru out. And because he tried to foil Balthazar Bratt and he couldn't. So the Anti-Villain League, under new management, says, you gotta go. So he does. And then, as you can imagine, by the end of the movie, he's, back to being good again, but for a while he turns into a villain as well, but really trying to get the diamond away from Balthazar Brat and foil his plan and this, that, and the other thing. So, this movie, while not on the level of 1, and probably not even as good as 2, is definitely a step up from the Minions movie. It's got some good jokes, and for me, 80s fan to the max. I'm wearing my Michael Jackson shirt right now. He features a little bit in the soundtrack of the film. I actually didn't plan that like I did with my Transformers shirt the other week. But as I'm thinking about it, the soundtrack is very 80s heavy because of the Balthazar Brat character. He sort of lives in the 80s still, and he's got an 80s robot, which, to be honest, we've seen before recently in the Muppets film that Jason Segel was in. They had 80s robot as a side character. Here, Balthazar Brat has an 80s robot sort of butler as well. So, all right, that's been done before. But the soundtrack selections are great and fun. And Trey Parker, while not really disguising his voice, you can certainly tell it's him from some of his other movies, Team America and South Park stuff. But he has a great time with the character. He's having a good time. And Steve Carell puts on a completely different voice for Drew. It's like a lot more soft spoken and a lot more just gentle and stuff. And then you've got Gru, with the thick accent and everything. I think Steve Carell is hilarious, and I think he has a great time with these characters. Kristen Wiig does a good job as well, and the little girls are fun, and there's a whole unicorn fluffy thing that relates back to the first film. The biggest problem with it is that once again there's like a Minions dance number that is unnecessary, and it's super short. It's like an hour and 28 minutes or something like that. It's very short, which can be okay, especially for a kid's movie. You don't need to drag them all out. They don't need to be 2+ hours. Some of the Pixar movies are. I think the original Cars was a little over 2 hours, speaking of which. But, so it was maybe even too short. I could have excised the Minions number and maybe done a little more plot development with Drew and Gru, or with Gru and the girls, or whatever, or even with the Anti-Villain League. I mean, I think there's some stuff to play with there. I think they have created a pretty rich world with the Minions. It's Pierre Coffin, who I guess directs it. I don't know if he writes it as well, but he voices all the Minions too. And it's a very rich world that they've created, and I like that they're trying to experiment with new things with it. We were introduced to the different characters in the other couple of movies, and then, again, the Minions got their own movie, but definitely you gotta have Gru in these movies. I mean, Steve Carell's great as Gru. The whole Minions thing, they're not in it too much, but they do get a dance number, like I said, and just there's so much physical comedy because they don't really speak English. They speak their own little Minionese language, and other than banana and I guess villain, you can kind of make out. It's just sort of a nonsense language. So, a lot of what they have to rely on for both their own movie and for the Despicable movies are these, kind of silent film gags and pratfalls. And it's like, it's okay. It works here. I think they're in it, an okay amount. I think if you like the Minions, it's great. If, like me, you're super sick of them, I think the dance number's a little much. But other than that, it's fine. You can enjoy it. And there's a whole dance-off number. One thing I liked about the marketing of the movie is that most of the scenes we see in the trailers come like in the first 15 or 20 minutes. The whole original scene where Gru gets caught up in the bubble gum and he's kind of floating naked past the building while they're having the birthday party. That's like in the first scene. And then the Minions getting upset when he doesn't want to be a villain again is maybe 5 minutes after that. So that was cool. I didn't have a lot of the movie spoiled for me, which is something I hate about trailers. So it was an okay entry into the Despicable Me franchise. I probably gave the Minions a C or a C minus. This one is a B minus, so definitely a step up. But that first Despicable Me is still, for me, the best one. But so that is it for this edition of Dan Reviews It. We've got our threequels out of the way with Cars 3 and Despicable Me 3. Tons of videos up on the channel. The Wonder Woman review with Merlin, the standalone Transformers review, the Mummy. We started doing a bunch of stuff with TV. Currently, we've got Riverdale, the first 4 episodes of that's going to be going up, and then Buffy reviews and X-Files reviews for some older stuff with Merlin. So join us on the Facebook group, which is Dan Reviews It. You can check out the Twitter feed at Film Fanatics Pod, harkening back to the old show Film Fanatics we used to do. And then you can subscribe to the channel. We're always getting new subscribers, so we love that. Tell a friend and have them subscribe as well. We love getting those numbers up. And that's going to do it. So thanks so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.